stuff, why aren't we able to convince people? And is that somewhere why you feel that the story of Jungle Nama, the story of Born Bibi, the story of our own folklores, maybe where we may find a guiding light for the future? Because when people like you and me talk, when other ecologists, I'm not an ecologist, I'm a journalist covering the story, but when you talk, when other ecologists talk, we can't convince people. We're called lefties, we're called, we're called worse, because lefty in this context, for the people saying it, is an insult. Is that one of the reasons, apart from being a writer, I know how strongly you feel about climate change, is that one of the reasons that you've gone back to storytelling as an instrument of change? And this very simple, accessible, almost deceptively simply told story.
Well, I wouldn't describe myself as an ecologist. Of course, in many ways, you are an ecologist. Your sister's an ecologist.
My sister is, not me. My sister certainly is one, yes.
Yes. Certainly looking at the disaster that's unfolding around the world today, you can't help but feel that the whole language of ecology is inadequate. What you said about Greta Thunberg is quite right. I mean, I think Greta, I have the greatest admiration for her. I think she's wonderful. But she's so committed to a sort of how shall I say, to the language of science, to the language of technocracy, that it's kind of hard to see how you can communicate these issues to people, to ordinary people often. In fact, in that way, I would say Pope Francis or the Dalai Lama actually are much better able to reach ordinary people. But again, let's go back to, these women that you interviewed. These women said this would happen. They predicted it. Yeah. So obviously, they know a lot more than engineers do. Yeah. They know a lot more than those engineers who built these dams do. And yet, the engineers have such access to power and to capital that they get to impose their vision upon the world, Yeah. Yeah. Even though there is no empirical justification for thinking that they know any more about the world than anybody else. They do not. These ordinary women clearly have a much better sense of how to cope with their environment than these learned engineers going from IITs or MIT or whatever. In that sense, I think engineering is itself a sort of recipe for disaster. Almost, if you look at the whole landscape of climate change, so much of it has been brought about by these sort of gigantic feats of engineering. And that's also true in the United States. What we see today is that climate change really is the landscape itself rising up in rebellion against these attempts to control it. So, for example...
By the way, sorry to jump in there, but it was also the year of the pandemic, and everybody was posting these facile photographs of the blue skies over Delhi suddenly, not realizing what the message there really was, that when this lockdown took place, suddenly your air cleaned up, suddenly, you could hear the birds chirping. And you had India's elite sort of posting all of this while baking their banana bread and their sourdough, but not actually realizing what the takeaway of these blue skies was.
Absolutely.
Even the pandemic hasn't been able to make us internalize this.
Yes. And that's really why, my 2016 book was called The Great Derangement.
And also, the Uttarakhand High Court recognized the Ganga to be a living entity, though that was the language that the court actually used for the Ganga. And so all of those who worship at the altar of Ganga actually do not treat her as sacred at all. And that's actually what's the really galling thing. You see all these constructions right on the water in defiance of every ecological norm. But, talk a little bit about the fact that one of the other big fault lines in India today is the farmers' protest, right? And there actually you had some amount of criticism of climate change activists like Greta Thunberg, because some people made the argument that the crops, in these states are very water intensive, that there is a diversification needed. And so you had these two sort of competing activisms collide, right? So there was the farmers speaking up against what they see as a kind of oligarchy entry into their space. And then there were others, a little more nuanced, saying, so where are all the climate change activists? Why are we backing this model of agriculture?
Look, again, if you look at the whole background of agriculture in the Punjab, it's a long series of the disastrous unintended consequences of engineering. Beginning with the Upper Ganga Canal, going back a long, long way. it started introducing, water-intensive crops into areas that were essentially desert. Water-intensive crops like cotton and so on, and setting that pattern for a long-term disaster. Similarly, the Green Revolution. What these farmers are dealing with now is the unintended consequences of the Green Revolution.
With Jungle Nama, have you tried to find a new way to convince people? Because I know, I remember interviewing you on your last work that dealt with, this sort of suicidal development model. But even now, even after Uttarakhand, even after we couldn't save those workers rescued in that tunnel, even after one hydroelectric project has been washed away, we cannot convince people. Every report of mine was followed by trolls saying, oh, you just don't want development. We can't get people to somehow believe that this will not happen to them. This is still something that happens to other people.
See, this is the thing. This whole idea of development has actually become... It cannot deliver what it promises. Obviously, I mean, if the dam is swept away, if people are drowned, and I mean, this story of the workers dying in that tunnel, my God, I mean, what a horrifying story. Yeah. So, this is just development as rhetoric. Yeah. This kind of development can't deliver anything. It's a mythology. It's a very powerful mythology. It's a mythology of gigantism, And let's face it, it's a mythology completely borrowed from colonial Western models, So this is, I think, the true tragedy of contemporary South Asia, but you could also say of other parts of Asia as well, that, we have been completely converted to a settler colonial idea.
By the way, that's the tunnel. That's the tunnel, and the workers couldn't get out of that tunnel. We were there, and it was just horrifying. It's just helpless. You had relatives standing outside, someone's son, someone's brother. And you cannot even get the rest of the country to care about it. That's the most frustrating thing. And that's why I want you to go back to, what you say, when you say this development model is a mythology. Just elaborate on that.
It's purely a mythology. It's a symbolic thing. I mean, these people just feel that, if you put up a gigantic barrier of concrete, that somehow it's taking you somewhere, even though it's completely predictable that this thing will be swept away.